My name is Jake, and our adventure begins on a crisp autumn evening in Denali National Park. The allure of the Alaskan wilderness had always captivated us, and now we were finally here, ready to explore its untamed beauty. You could feel the thrill in the air as we set up our camp under the towering pines. The scent of pine needles filled our nostrils, the distant howls of wolves echoing in the backdrop. It was an intoxicating mix of excitement and trepidation. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the forest around us was painted with long, stretching shadows. We were strangers in this land, mere specks in the vast expanse of nature. We huddled around the warmth of the campfire, sharing stories and laughter, our hearts full of anticipation for the adventure that lay ahead. The night fell and the temperature dropped, but the warmth of the campfire lulled us into a false sense of security. That night, as I lay in my tent, the wind whispered through the trees like an eerie melody. It was a symphony of the wild, a lullaby of the wilderness, that was abruptly interrupted by a bone-chilling howl that echoed through the vast valley. This was no ordinary howl. It was a deep, guttural sound that resonated with an ominous undertone. It was as if the very soul of the forest was crying out in anguish, a cry that sent a chill down my spine. My heart pounded in my chest as I unzipped my tent. I stepped out into the cold, my breath creating small clouds in the crisp autumn air. The moon hung low in the sky, casting an ethereal glow on the landscape, illuminating the silhouette of a creature of an unthinkable size. Its eyes glowed with an intensity that was almost hypnotic. It was a sight that defied logic, a sight that could only belong to the mythical beast known as the Sasquatch. The creature stood there, just beyond the ring of light cast by our campfire. It was an imposing figure, its form obscured by the darkness yet outlined by the moonlight. The Sasquatch was an enigma, a creature of legend standing right before me. Its eyes, those glowing orbs that held an otherworldly intelligence, stared at me, and for a moment time seemed to stand still. Fear gripped me, sending a shiver down my spine. I tried to scream, to alert my friends, but the terror had rendered me mute. I was alone face to face with a creature of legend, a creature that was supposed to exist only in stories. But there it was, as real as the fear that coursed through my veins. Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the Sasquatch was gone. It disappeared into the shadows with a grace that belied its massive size. The forest swallowed it up, leaving behind only the echo of its howl and a lingering sense of dread. In an instant, the Sasquatch vanished into the night, leaving me trembling in the darkness. Morning came, and my friends scoffed at my tale, dismissing it as a figment of my imagination. Laughter echoed around the breakfast fire, their disbelief hanging in the crisp morning air like the lingering remnants of the night's fog. They shrugged off the encounter as a product of the wilderness and the darkness playing tricks on an overactive imagination. But I knew what I had seen, and the memory was as clear as the icy stream that ran alongside our camp. As we packed up our gear, the laughter and banter gradually faded. The wilderness seemed to close in around us, its silence more deafening than any city's cacophony. We ventured deeper into the park, the sense of unease growing with each step. The towering pines, once majestic, now seemed ominous, their shadows stretching out like long skeletal fingers. The first oddity we noticed was the footprints, massive imprints in the mud that were unlike any animal tracks we'd come across before. The prints were deep and wide, the markings of a creature far larger than anything known to inhabit these woods. The sight of those footprints sent a shiver through our group, a silent acknowledgement that perhaps my tale was not just a product of an overactive imagination. As we continued our trek, the feeling of being watched was constant. It was as if the trees themselves had eyes, their gaze following our every move. The wind carried distant howls, eerie echoes that seemed to come from all directions. The wilderness was no longer just a place of beauty and serenity. It was a living, breathing entity, a creature that watched and waited. The further we journeyed into the heart of Denali National Park, the more the strange occurrences continued to unfold. It was a chilling realization that the Sasquatch encounter was not an isolated event, but rather the opening chapter of a tale that was far from over. Our journey had just begun, and the nightmares of that night would pale in comparison to the horrors that awaited us in the heart of the wilderness.